Hello and welcome to 5 Year Club video number 154, Bounce City Bounce 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 edition. Or in the words of R. Kelly, bounce, 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 bounce. I'm like the same person. All right. If you will remember, video 153 talked about an unpleasant market change yesterday where the S&P 500 took a dive. Well, turns out the following day it bounced right back. And I just took a 5-day graph of the S&P 500 to show you that we are right back up to where we were before the terrible crash thing. If you'll remember from one of my previous videos, I also said most of the daily price movements in the stock market are noise. Turns out, that large movement from Italy, that was noise. That was people panicking over something. Or, retrospectively, I think it's kind of like if the market moves a large amount due to a random walk, then the news is going to look for a reason why it moved. And then it's kind of this weird feedback loop where once the news latches onto a narrative or a story about why the market has moved the way it has, then it's like self-fulfilling because people, then respond to that news story by making trades. Anyhow, some things to remember. Today is just like a don't freak out reminder day. And there's an interesting thing where the more money that you invest in the stock market, the more the dollar amount is going to swing up and down. So potentially you're more freaked out, but you're also safer because you have more invested. So it's like those two things are working together at the same time. For me, what I found is that the swings going, I don't actually think about the total amount invested. I think about the swing size no matter what. And so I just get kind of more freaked out when I look at that number. But I've been very good about, I never ever trade based on market changes. And things have tended to be okay in the last, I guess 5 years. So I'm like, okay, fair enough. And yeah, so the reason why I wanted to do this bounce video is because once you see this pattern where market dramatically falls one day, bounces back the next, then you worry less about those falls because you're it's just going to bounce back. In fact, this kind of bouncing phenomenon is so common that I was reading a book that talked about sovereign debt crises across history. So sovereign defaults, things like that, like countries getting into credit crunches. And one thing that they pointed out that when there's a crisis, the home values tend to go fall, rise back up. Let's see if I can do this. Fall, rise back up. So they kind of gradually fall, they kind of gradually rise back up. And I think the reason why that is because, well, maybe they don't gradually fall, but they gradually rise back up. I think the reason why that is because in order for the home prices to come back up, you have to deal with some stuff. For example, during the 2008 housing crisis, you had a bunch of short sales that had to be worked through. And my short sale took 5 months to close. That takes some paperwork. It takes time to find buyers. It takes time to close on those loans. So it takes time for the home prices to change for those reasons. But the stock prices in a crisis, they're more fall, rise. That the period where they're down is not, it can be 2 years, but the home prices can be 8 years. But the point is that, the stock prices kind of are like this, and then the home prices are kind of something more like that. And that was really interesting that people have experienced, and these are dramatic drops. These are 20%, 40% or more drops. People have experienced those so many times in history that we're actually able to compare them to other kinds of drops, like real estate drops. And there's, it's you look at these examples in different countries over hundreds of years and you're the market always comes back. Productive labor always comes back. And but most people don't have this perspective because they don't read these really long books on the economy of Venezuela for the past 100 years or whatever it is. And people like things that are easy. They don't have to, expend any effort on. And therefore, most people are like, oh, I don't want to buy the market when it's too high. I want to buy it when it's low. But the key to it all is really just don't spend all your money so that you have some money to put into the stock market, and also so that you have an emergency fund so that when these fluctuations happen, you don't have to freak out. Because you're going to be fine, because you have the emergency money set away, and because you have enough invested where even if it dropped some, you'd still be fine. And, obviously keep watching my channel and read the nerdy books I read so that you understand that the market always comes back. It's like Terminator. Bum, 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 I'm gonna make you rich. Bum, 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 but it's gonna happen slowly. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, hopefully I don't get copyright dinged on that. All right, yeah, so June is coming. It's coming in 2 days, I guess, at this point. A little bit less than 2 days. So it's time for us to do our June budgets. I just revised mine some today. And here's your, daily reminder that the economy, as of May 30th, 2018, is doing really well. And so now is the time to set aside money for investment. Now is the time to build an emergency fund. Now is the time to prepare for winter, because winter is coming. Figure out how to save some money out of your next paycheck in the following days. All right, that's it for video number 154. Hope you enjoyed seeing this beautiful bounce, this beautiful stock crack. Oh, that was a bit too much. And can't wait to see you for the next video. Have a fabulous evening.